okay? Because you only get 5 minutes. And they only start once their presentation starts and once they start speaking. But you can't pantomime the whole thing. Okay, so you got one mic there, you got one mic here.
Hi, my name is Meta, and this is Daniel. Between us, we've founded 7 companies, and we've gotten 7 products to market. But mine started a little bit different. It was a personal thing for me. I was one of the 24 million Americans with an autoimmune condition. It means that your immune system is attacking your healthy cells. Most of you might not be familiar with the term autoimmune, but you'll likely know somebody who has MS, who has lupus, who has Crohn's disease. Today, we're largely dependent on drugs to manage these conditions. One of the things that we see is that, okay, I'm nervous. They're costly, they're ineffective, and they have debilitating side effects, including organ failure and even death. Like many others, I was taking handfuls of pills and injecting myself, and I wasn't getting better. When my doctors told me they had great news and proceeded to tell me I wasn't going to die in the immediate future, I hit a wall, and I decided to take matters into my own hands. Evidence suggests that lifestyle changes can have a significant impact on these conditions and even reverse symptoms. Your blood work might give an indication of what is wrong, but it doesn't tell us anything about the environment that goes into producing the condition. Understanding the correlations between behavior and symptoms on paper in a rigorous way is virtually impossible. And that is where MyMe comes in. It's a digital tool that allows you to track patient data between visits. Our 12-week program allows us to detect non-obvious symptoms and triggers and understand how to motivate the patients to understand what goes into changing their behavior and thereby reversing their disease symptoms.
This is the case that Meta did that made me really say, wow. Charlotta is an autoimmune patient, a patient with lupus, and she'd been sick for 9 years. Her symptoms were so bad that pulling a sheet over her body would make her scream in pain. She worked with Meta, and within a few weeks, Meta had figured out that her triggers were nightshades and dehydration. They worked to reverse her triggers, and within a year, her blood work came back normal, and she was able to get pregnant with her beautiful daughter, Leia. Since then, Meta has worked with 23 other lupus patients, and all 23 have seen significant improvements in their quality of life, but no 2 of those 23 had the same set of triggers. We already have 10 paying physicians on the platform now beta testing it for us. We have a waiting list of 226 who've signed up to use it, and Meta has cultivated relationships over the last few years that will allow us to quickly scale to about 20,000 additional physicians. Now, some of those physicians don't have their own health coaches. On the backside, we can bolt on our coaching service for an additional revenue stream. And our hope is that we can negotiate shared savings deals when we go to payers and other at-risk entities so that we make their patients who are most sick and most expensive better and take a cut of the upside. MyMe is a system that was built to provide massive scalability to personalized medicine. What we're learning with some of the sickest patients who have lupus, scales to other autoimmune issues, and really it applies to everyone. We're raising a seed round which will allow us to refine our platform, make it a little tougher, conduct 2 or 3 clinical trials, and start selling this to reference customers. We encourage you to reach out if you're interested in investing or doing research with us. Thank you.
Beat the clock.
Questions?
I have a question. Don't you need to understand, at least have a hypothesis about the set of potential triggers in order to create an environment to collect the data?
So what we've actually seen is that there is, of course, a hypothesis oftentimes being generated in the early time of tracking with patients, but we see that part patients often look more like lupus patients and vice versa. So if we apply too rigid a set of ideas up front, we actually often don't get the results fast enough.
So in other words, your software has to be moldable in order to accept future hypotheses.
Yeah, So the way that it is right now is that, of course, we're learning as we go. There's certain things that are coming up for patients across the board that we then take on for the next set of patients. But in general, the platform is built like Lego and is really molded to the individual patient.
How will you train patients? Because the question is there a validated instrument of the symptoms that patients should be aware of to sign on to you for? And so are you narrowing down based on existing symptoms that patients present with an autoimmune disease? And then how will you then train them?
So we've actually, this started out more as a one-on-one coaching on my part before we started building technology and actually scaling it. And back then, the whole point was it was non-obvious, so people would come with all sorts of different symptoms. There is today a rigid methodology that we follow, so we're pretty good at understanding what it takes to kind of dissect and understand what is it, the clues that we have to find.
So there are literally thousands of coaching apps.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of them fail, usually because people stop using them after a few weeks, a few months. And there's never been one that I've seen that's been shown to be as effective as personal coaching. The few that actually do succeed have that coaching built into the app somehow, so you're getting an app plus people behind it. How are you going to deal with that?
I'm a huge believer that it has to be man plus machine. I think one of the most important parts of this is that by tracking and working with patients over 5 years, we've learned that it really comes down to making something that is so simple that people will do it without even really registering it. So we've narrowed it down to 2 metrics. We're looking at topics and tags. So we're not like a lot of the apps out there asking people for rigorous detail. We're looking for data quantity more than data quality, because by having this shift in the way we track data, we can actually get enough data to make these correlations. And we've not worked with any autoimmune patients that we couldn't identify the triggers within a 4 to 5 week period.
I'll only make one other comment. So this is part of a precision medicine initiative that you're doing, right? Patient symptoms. I think understanding and partnering with genomic medicine, which is actually a huge area for autoimmune, particularly lupus right now, those are the types of partners you should be looking at today. Health coaching requires not just a patient understanding it, but frankly, you've got to really train your coaches. The issue is the coaching, and it's not just affordability. And so you're either looking at coaches who've had symptoms, or you have coaches who have been part of it. And building that up, I think looking at what that financial model will be for this business is where you'll need to spend a lot of your time. It's not the technology component.
But that's exactly, today all the coaches we work with are hired who has had an autoimmune condition themselves so that they can understand it. But we actually are part of an initiative where they're looking at undiagnosed patients, so it's metabolic, genomic, all these different kinds of data that we will be looking at up against our data.
Could you walk us through the process of patient intake, the kinds of questions that are asked, and how you collect that data?
Yes.
And then, because you talk about massive scalability, and anything that has such a large human component is going to be limited by the number of coaches you can train and meaningfully put in place.
Yeah. So the first set is that you track for 3 to 5 days. People just snap a picture of everything they eat. The reason that we do that is because everybody has to learn how to track. It has to be easy. Once they've gotten the food intake in, there is an onboarding session where the coaches sit down and understand what are the symptoms, how do they appear for you, and we actually, let's say I'm tapering, let's say you have a symptom and it feels in a specific way to you, we will actually use that verbiage in the app. So it's not the standard side effects. Sorry. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Big round of applause for Miami, for Meta, and for Dan Rothman. That was great. Fantastic. So judges, scale of 1 to 10 while we're waiting for Steve Luke to come up. Make sure you have all your thoughts down there. Also, you can write your feedback on the back if you're okay with them. Just make sure you separate it by sections so we can parse it for them later. So what do you think? That was your first real pitch today. It was interesting, right? Good stuff? I think they raised, Dan, what are you up to? Last I saw was like $115,000 online using MedStartr. Very exciting. And this is really an evolution of the platform, so it's good stuff. So if we can bring up number 2, which is Audible RX, which Steve was just pointing out to me would be very useful for somebody like me who can't really read small print. So if we'll bring up Steve Luke, and we'll start his 5 minutes. Here's your clicker. I think it's upside down there. There you go. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you're watching Casey over there. Okay, Casey, I can't see very well, so make sure you wave things around. And that's why we have Mighty Casey.
And that's good right there.
On the timer. She actually goes by Mighty Mouth sometimes. She is the Mighty Mouth, so she is perfect for this. Okay, so I'll get off the stage and get out of your way, Steve. Good luck.
Thank you for having me. My name is Steve Luke. I'm a doctor of pharmacy. I work in a community pharmacy in Northern California, an outpatient pharmacy for a hospital. Before we get started, I want to be clear on what we're talking about, Consumer Medication Information, or CMI. These are the papers that are stapled to the bag when you walk out of the pharmacy. There are no particular regulatory requirements around making these. However, the FDA does have a guidance document that says specifically what needs to be in the document in order for it to be considered useful, and that's the key word, useful. What Audible RX does is we provide useful and accessible consumer medication information in an audio format. The problem here is that 36% of the population is challenged with health literacy. They don't have the capability to act upon these, the handouts. The rest of the population, well, most of them don't read it anyway. They throw them away. What these papers do is they meet a legal requirement for the institution that's handing them out. They don't necessarily provide distinct patient education for these patients. Pharmacists, on the other hand, do their best to try to counsel patients, but they are pushed to the limit with performance metrics. How many prescriptions per hour did you fill this hour? And so regularly, pharmacists will counsel a patient at the counter on 5 or 6 medications in under 3 minutes, and then hand them a stack of papers and tell them, okay, if you have any questions, give me a call. This is ridiculous. This right here is one patient who was discharged after a heart attack from our hospital about 3 weeks ago. 6 new medications, and they're sent home with all this paper. What are they going to do with all that? Throw it away. The solution is to provide user-friendly consumer medication information designed specifically for the patient, something that patients can actually understand. Format this particular information in a way that is the most user-friendly way possible. This is what it looks like. The text scrolls underneath the button bar. Patients can scroll forward, scroll backwards, save it, print it. It's written in a format that meets health or follows health literacy guidelines and is narrated by a human voice. What we need to do first is build a search engine library so we can have a mobile kiosk that nurses can take, put in front of patients, they queue up the medications, put them in front of the patient while they're at the bedside. Doctors can use it in clinics to help patients understand the medications. Second, we need to build what we just heard about a little bit ago, is a really slick API so it can integrate seamlessly in with electronic health records, pharmacy data systems, pharmacy software computer systems, so we can get this information, the library out more easily. What we envision is, as hospitals meet the Affordable Care Act Meaningful Use 2 and Meaningful Use 3 requirements, that patients will access their medication information through the patient portal. On the retail setting, we would like to see every time a prescription is filled, rather than a paper being printed out, a link being sent to the patient's phone, their text message, or their email so that they have access to it at that point in time. We have a prototype built on the website. one medication in English and Spanish. It works really well. We have 300 consumer medication information sessions written and copyright protected. These 300 medications include the top 200 prescribed medications, which also includes 85% of all medications that are filled at your average pharmacy. My partner put together on the MedStartr website a really great description of the market. Numbers. What I want to point out is one specific number on here, 3.2 billion. There are 3.2 billion prescriptions filled every year. If Audible or accessed 1% of that, we would have 32 million uses. This right here, I'm going to bypass because I'm running short on time, except for the one point that states discharge is overwhelming. Let's not send them home with any more papers. What we would like to do, my partner and I would like to partner with someone, an investor, to take us to the next level. Thank you.
So the patient data information which is being given out by the pharmacist is highly prescribed by the FDA with regards to the detailing of the drug. How are you going to ensure that the descriptions that you're writing don't conflict with that or are in any way contradictory to, how are you going to get them approved, I guess, by the drug manufacturer?
Very good question. Right now, consumer medication is written by private vendors. It's not written by drug manufacturers. There are 3 different types of medication information. There are package inserts, there are medication guides, which encompass about 150 different medications which are considered hazardous to the health. Those are written by the drug manufacturer. The consumer medication information is written by private vendors such as Wolters Kluwer, Elsevier, Micromedex, Lexicomp, and they have vast databases of this information written in legalese. In 2006, the FDA put out a guidance document on written, useful consumer medication information. We have evaluated that inside and out and assure that each one of our sessions that we template and write meet each one of the criteria listed on that particular document. So there is no regulatory agency that says you can use this, that you have to get it approved. It's just assuring that you meet those requirements.
But to follow up on that point, the reason that those companies are doing it is because they're paid by the pharma companies to provide them. What is your plan in going to a pharma company to be able to be a substitute or to have them decide that yours is superior?
First off, I disagree. I don't believe that those companies are paid by pharmaceutical companies in order to provide that consumer medication information. They are paid on a subscription basis from pharmacies and from hospitals in order to purchase the medication information, but the drug manufacturers do not pay the subscription companies to write the information. Our process we would like to step in as a boutique, accessible replacement to those to the big 5 companies that provide this information. The big 5 companies do not have any audio format. There are a couple of them that provide their information in computer-generated audio reading, which sounds like a computer reading a telephone book if you've ever listened to those. Did I answer that question?
How are you planning to deal with the consumer's typical questions like, what do I take? What's the dosage? What happens? Do I take it before a meal, after a meal? Answering their questions rather than just reading through the official documentation.
That has to do with templating it and writing it. We've extensively reviewed the federal guidelines on health literacy. We've reviewed the FDA document guidance and templated it based upon how the information flows best for a pharmacist talking to a patient.
So have you done any testing to determine whether or not people will actually listen to the recordings any more than they will read the documentation? I mean, I can imagine that person who was discharged with all that paper for a heart condition, they would probably have to sit there and listen to, I don't know, an hour's worth of technical jargon and medical jargon they don't even understand.
So how do we make sure that people are going to listen to it? First of all, when we have developed it, it's developed in such a way that people do understand it. It's not something that they don't understand. The papers that are out currently are difficult for people to understand. What we have developed is something that is very understandable. With regards to whether someone would actually listen to it or not, we have performed a small-scale study with a grad student at Waterloo University. And we used one drug, and we compared the audio versus the written, and based upon their health literacy standards. Anyway, what it showed was that when patients who listened to who were health literacy challenged and listened to the form were able to answer the questions just as well as patients who were not challenged with literacy and read the form. It brought them up to par. Granted, there were a lot of faults in that study. However, we have just been contacted by a professor from Waterloo and a professor from Touro University in California who wrote a study protocol for a large-scale study on just this very thing.
Yeah, I personally agree with Mark that if you focused a little bit more on the actual advice I need from my doctor on how to take the medication, what I need to know, what I should or shouldn't eat or drink with the medication, especially for someone who, like you said,
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, big round of applause for Steve Luke. Great job. Thank you. If we can bring up presentation 3 for Ellie Grid. That was really great stuff, right? So the time limit doesn't apply to the sponsor. Okay, he can talk as long as he wants. Actually, no, it's not just true for Dan, but it's true for anybody on the panel. Yes, I know. But sorry, I'm being a little OCD here. So I don't know if you guys heard that. You couldn't hear me when I took the mic away from my mouth. So if you're up here speaking, and a lot of you guys are going to be, make sure you speak right into the mic, okay? Because if you don't think you can be heard, it probably can't be. Also, I'm not sure you guys realize this, but we are live streaming this on Facebook and on YouTube, on the MedStartr pages, and probably also on Health Tech Talk Live. First of all, if you don't want to be on the internet, don't get up on this stage. Second of all, there is a release that if you're on stage up by the front door, you have to sign those releases so we can use your image and likeness. Abe, I'm going to mess it up again. MedMo16, thank you. Why can't everybody just have names like Alex Fair? That's just easy, right? Although people do mess it up. Abe, we first met Abe, he actually was in another crowd challenge, which he actually won, but that wasn't as big as this one, and it wasn't our money, it was a pharmaceutical company's money. So we really wanted to see how he does in this performance. He has a lot of potential, and I see his deck is up, and he's got his demo. So timer if you're ready. I am ready, and Abe is ready. Go for it.
Hello, I hope all of you are doing well. My name is Abe Matamoros, co-founder of Grid. And this is my grandfather. He's usually always having a good time. But last year, he got really sick because he didn't take his medications for 3 days. He said it was because he uses those pill boxes that say Sunday through Saturday on the top with the time periods on the side. And it takes him 30 minutes to an hour to organize it every week. So he sometimes doesn't do it, not to mention all the times he just forgets to take it. So I started looking into the problem and realized 70% of Americans take a prescription pill. 50% of patients don't take their medications as prescribed, and the direct cost of noncompliance is $300 billion. So because of this, there's a lot of people trying to solve this problem. You have the organizers, like my grandfather's. This one's smart because it has an alarm, but it'll cost you $60 a month, not very portable, and it's pretty stigmatizing because it looks like a pill box. You have the pill bottles that cost about $60 plus a monthly fee. Great if you have one important medicine, but if you have a couple, it can be kind of inconvenient to be carrying around a bunch of bottles, and it can get expensive. The dispensers, there's a lot of these that have come out. It costs between $700 to $1,000, and we learned that most people don't want R2-D2 on their kitchen table. And then you have the delivery services that send you 2 weeks' worth of prepackaged medication. And we learned that they have a high customer cost of acquisition because they have to convince people to move to their pharmacy. They can't gather compliance data because it's a piece of cardboard. And if your medication regimen changes halfway through the week, you have a box full of medicine that you can't use. So we learned that there was a lot of people out there trying to solve this problem, but over 500 people we spoke to, no one used any of these products. So we wanted to design one that people actually used. And we designed Grid. With EliGrid, each compartment contains one type of medication. So whenever you're running low, Whenever you're running low, you can simply take your pill bottle and pour in more. Now it takes my grandfather 30 seconds to organize his medications instead of 30 minutes to an hour. Then whenever it's time to take your medicine, the device will ring, and the lights will tell you which pills to take and how many. In this case, you take 2 yellow ones, 1 blue one, and 3 white ones. You'll also receive a notification on your phone. And my grandfather loves cars. So along with the notification is a fun fact. This one says 75% of all Rolls-Royce ever made are still on the road today. For the first time, my grandfather actually looks forward to taking his medications because it means he gets to learn a fun fact about something he's interested in. And I have peace of mind because I'll receive a text message whenever he received a notification, whenever he took his medicine, letting me know he took it or he didn't take it because of the sensors on the device. So as we started doing some market validation, we realized a lot of products are targeting this mature demographic, people that are 70 and older, and failing because they're not very open to technology, especially with something that has to do with an app or technology can be a little intimidating. But we also learned that people that are between the ages of 40 and 70, including baby boomers, they're aging very quickly and there's no products out there for them. When they look at the products that exist, they say, oh no, I'm not that old. But at the same time, they take 3 vitamins and 3 medications. So we designed something for this demographic. This is a demographic that's not only aging, but they're on social media, so we can target them very easily. They use smartphones. They're the first demographic that's going to be elderly and have used technology. So we're going to start, as for our business model, we're going to start by selling the product direct to consumers. We want to prove that people are willing to buy it and that they actually use it and that it increases compliance. And we're going to focus on just this. Once we've done that, we're going to move over to the data. Home healthcare providers have said they're willing to pay $10 per month per user to know how their patients are doing at home. One of the largest home healthcare provider in Houston already wants to use EliGrid. Other organizations have said they're willing to pay up to $20,000 per month for access to anonymized database. If we grow at a 12% monthly growth rate, we can reach $85 million in revenue by year 5 at just 0.05 market penetration. Now, these are just projections, obviously, but we've already started and we've gotten a better start than we expected. 2 weeks ago, we launched a crowdfunding campaign and we've reached 100% of our goal in 2 weeks, sold 250 products, and that's about $40,000 in revenue. This is with 0 marketing dollars. We've also run a crowdfunding campaign on MedStartr where industry experts such as Takeda have already committed to up to $50,000 on MedStartr. So we're really excited about the feedback that we've gotten so far from users. As for our team, Hugh has a master's in electrical engineering from USC, worked at TI for 3 years, and is getting his master's in electrical engineering from Georgia Tech. My background is in finance and economics. I have experience as an entrepreneur. Yeah, that's Regina and Nick.
All right, that was great. Some questions from our panel?
It's a really crowded space.
Yeah.
And, I guess so among the key issues are what makes you significantly different from the other products in the market? And then a follow-up question is, you mentioned verification of medication adherence. How are you gathering that? Is it self-reported on the phone, or is it something in the box that's reading how many pills you got?
Would you mind not changing the slides yet, in case for the questions? Yeah, so you're right. It is a crowded space, but no one's actually using these products. There's a lot of people trying to enter this market, but no one's actually using them. What we're saying is we're targeting a very different market than all the other ones, that they lock, they have really loud alarms, something that may be necessary for an 85-year-old, but not for a 60-year-old who's well-bodied but takes a lot of medications. We're targeting a completely different market. This could actually be dangerous for an 85-year-old with dementia. All the pills are out in the open, right? But a 60-year-old that's well-bodied but takes medications we found are annoyed by things that have really loud alarms and lock. They don't want a doctor. They just want something to be friendly and helpful. So we're also approaching it more from a consumer perspective of creating a brand and a product that is well-designed, which we've realized hasn't been a priority for a lot of these other products because that's not as important when you're targeting this older demographic.
To reiterate, how do you determine whether or not they've taken the pill?
Yes, so we have a sensor that can tell whether you've opened or closed the device when it's time to take the medication.
So
So
it's
it's a
not
deg-
about them actually taking the pill or how many they took, whether they took one or two. It's just they opened the box.
Yeah, we can't tell if they swallowed it.
Can you tell
or
if they've removed it from the box?
No, and we had scales to do that, but we realized it just got really expensive, and we wanted this product to be accessible to consumers. So right now it's just open and close, and we've talked to healthcare providers and insurance companies, and they've said that's already way better than, because they have no data right now. Right now, the way they can tell if people took their medications is if they've ordered a refill within 90 days from the pharmacy. So with this, we feel like we can still provide a product that's accessible.
I'm sorry to dominate, but how well does it travel? Can I just throw it in my,
Yes.
and it will
Yes.
open, it's not going to...
Yeah, this is a prototype. This is a prototype, so it travels pretty well. It fits in my back pocket. It's pretty uncomfortable for back pocket, but you can tell the size, and it'll have magnets where you can that hold down the product. So, and then you can move it around. They're not going to mix up or anything.
So I think your target demographic is actually appropriate. It is the baby boomers who are well, but are actually pursuing a lot of wellness types activities. I think your product design, because these are consumers who are very interested in the quality of the design, I think there's some opportunity there, because if I only take 3 pills, that would be challenging for me.
Right.
And I also think that for this population, they actually want some more wellness. So not just fun facts, but they actually are looking for a bit more. I think for the high-risk population, where we want to know, did they take their meds? How many did they take? That is not your target market. And I think you've got to be, even though you're talking about the over 75, you're really aiming for the 40 to 65 who are taking things and who don't have a lot of chronic illnesses,
Right.
are not as worried. And I think shifting the marketing a bit so that it's specifically that has opportunity. Pharmaceutical companies will still be interested, but I think your product design is probably an opportunity for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the product design is interesting, but I think you're actually also competing against some of the smartphone-only apps. Because in that target market, you're looking at people with maybe 2 or 3 different meds. And there are apps out there that will do exactly that. And then if the stuff's still in the pill bottles, they've got the reorder information.
Right. We actually, the most successful app out there is I forgot what it's called actually, but they've got over 3 million users, and they actually want to integrate with our product. So we're not trying to create the new innovative app. It's more the app-device relationship, because at the end of the day, the pills are physical. So, but yeah, on your point, we are targeting that younger demographic. Even we've had 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds buy it, and we've asked why, and they're like, well, it just doesn't look like a pill box. So if we can create a brand like that, then it's more of a healthy lifestyle product than a medical device, and it'll be less stigmatizing, because we learned that stigma is a big problem and a big reason why people don't use these pill boxes or any of these other products out there.
You may even want to go after the supplement market, bodybuilders,
Yeah.
Just thinking
whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of interest from them as well.
That's exactly your market.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, I have one last question, and this is really for the audience. Show of hands, who would use this? I would use this, no? Any other people with 2 chronic conditions, they take pills for it? No? No?
We
Francie,
now know
no?
a lot about you, Alex.
You don't? Okay, so here's a clue, Abby. So everybody who's got these jackets on, okay, we're mostly people who are patient advocates, people who got involved in healthcare because something bad happened or what have you. We got angry about something. Which if you look at my jacket, I got a little angry. So talk to them. See what they would say, okay? Because I think one of the teams you're going to see here today, I don't know if Chat's in the room, but when we asked everybody if they would use his product, everybody raised their hands. So that, to me, is a very important metric, crowd metrics, you guys. Okay, so big round of applause for Abe. Great job, really good. So next up, we have Joshua. Josh, come on up. It's presentation number 4. Oh, hang on. Yep. So I'm on the wrong page here. So Josh Weiss, I believe. And he's got I think it's Agewell Biometrics, if I remember correctly. Yes. Okay. So that's your thing?
Which is the button.
That's your thing? Yes, that's the button. Okay, you good? Oh, you might want to move this up.
Okay, hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm Joshua Wise. I'm CEO of AgeWell Biometrics. I've been a physical therapist for the last 25 years. Today, AgeWell is here raising $1 million to commercialize our product, Equilibrium. Many of us, we want something that gives us a simple way to know that we, our loved ones, or our patients are safe and as vital as can be. One of the great challenges of aging healthily is inactivity, and that's often caused in aging by fear of falls. It leads to social isolation, depression, loss of function, and sadly and ironically, falls. My experience as a physical therapist over the years led me to found AgeWell Biometrics and our mission to end the epidemic of falls that affects 1 in 3 seniors every year. It's the falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in older adults, and sadly, many of these falls, 50%, are avoidable. If only people had a simple signal that encouraged them when they were doing the right things to maintain their independence, or gave them a warning if they were going off track. So AgeWell developed the Equilibrium Quotient, or EQ score. It's a simple number that represents balance and vitality, and it's backed up by years of scientific research. Now, for years, the consumers have been offered too little, too late. Usually, it's a button that they wear that has a stigma. They push the button when they've already had a life-threatening fall. Nobody wants that, but that's all there is to offer. What we're suggesting is that we integrate with third-party devices that offer a signal that lets the person know that they're doing the right thing. For people who want greater detail, we have our smartphone application Equilibrium that offers validated, objective testing of physical function, gait analysis, and offers reporting via our web dashboard on various metrics related to physical function, balance, strength, and mobility. Under the hood is our back end. It's the first automated cloud-based analytics engine that reports and recommends timely actions for fall prevention to care providers, but also to lay people. It takes my expertise as a physical therapist and puts it into the hands of everyone. Equilibrium seamlessly acquires sensor data from wearable and smartphone devices. Our cloud-based server uses our proprietary algorithms, which include activity recognition and machine learning heuristics, in order to analyze the sensor signal, and then we offer reporting for timely preventative actions. And these actions are known to reduce falls by 50 to 60% in older adults. So our business model is a simple, scalable, tiered license. We start with a family plan that starts at $150 a year and goes up to large-scale enterprise integrations for hospital systems or accountable care organizations at slightly more money than that. We've had various pre-commercial pilots around the country. These are a few. We completed the Relevant Health Accelerator earlier this year, and we're currently negotiating with one of the largest home health care providers in the country. And there we go. We project to break even with investment today at year 2. There's a total addressable market of 40 million older adults and the people that care for them. And our goal is a exit via trade sale at an early time. We have a very experienced, well-seasoned team offering clinical expertise in large-scale enterprise application development, and from Cambridge University, Dr. Lazenby, our CSO, who's an expert in signal processing and machine learning. Our advisors are some of the world's leading experts on geriatric medicine, fall prevention, signal processing, machine learning. And we're currently raising $1 million in order to commercialize our platform, Equilibrium, as well as to develop our SDK and our API for third-party device integration. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to your questions, judges. Thank you.
All right, that's great. So you don't actually have to use the whole 5 minutes if you don't want. You can actually stop, and then you have more time for Q&A. So just a 10-minute total. So this is the second to last presentation. Judges, get your tough questions out, and then we're going to do a coffee break. So thank you.
So this is clearly a critical clinical area, but I'm looking at the fall as the outcome variable as you do your machine learning. And my question is, you have to collect this data and then analyze it with falls as the outcome. Is that correct? And where are you in that process of actually using your data to be predictive?
So we don't make any claims to prediction with per se. However, the components of our smartphone application are all validated and have predictive validity, such as the timed up and go test, gait analysis, things of that nature. The machine learning component has the ability and was validated in independent research to classify fallers from non-fallers in a study that was about 80 people and currently has about a 75% accuracy. With larger numbers, we would obviously be able to optimize our algorithms. So it does work, and there are, yeah. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure if I understood it correctly.
So is it all on the device? Or do you wear a device and then you monitor the data? Or is there something in the phone, you're using the phone's gyroscopic?
So there's, the product is Equilibrium, which is the software analytics platform. We want to integrate with devices. So we have a smartphone application that can be used on a periodic basis to measure and monitor. Or the person can wear a smartwatch or a pendant which has sensors in it. And then there's a continuous monitoring where we use our activity recognition algorithms in order to assess gait parameters, how a person gets up and down from a chair, known risk factors.
And what additional things are in that sensor that aren't in the phone?
Really, the same sensors. Smartphones these days have sort of medical grade sensors. So it's 3D motion, accelerometry, gyroscopy, magnetometry. And then there are other components which can be risk factors as well.
Super.
I would imagine if I had equilibrium problems, I can go to my doctor and within 10, 15 minutes he could assess my stability and grade me in some way. How much more accurate is your device, your platform, than a doctor spending a few minutes with me? And then what benefit do I get from that other than I would get from having, that help me a phone and I can't get up button?
Sure. So there's a few things. First of all, if you imagine a sort of a normal curve, and maybe in the middle of that curve are your people who would be picked up by a visual clinical test like you described. Earlier on, there are subtle changes which are not detectable visually, such as changes in gait, which we would be able to pick up and have demonstrated through using sensor technology. So there's a large number of people where a simple a clinical test does not necessarily pick up a problem. Secondly, it offers a tool for objective measurement, monitoring, retesting of individuals' response to treatment that is highly objective and numerical. So it's a great clinical tool. If you look, for example, in the home health, where they're bringing in pre-claims review, which means you have to prove that you need skilled therapy and that there's a specific objective reason, this Equilibrium is a great reason, and that's one of the large companies we're talking to with at the moment. That's really why they became very interested in using Equilibrium. So there's a number of use cases, and it's not, another use case is, for example, everyone who turns 65 has to have a fall risk assessment as one of the quality measures when they see their doctor, and using the Equilibrium tool is a simple, quick way to assess fall risk. So there are a number of use cases for that. It's not always as obvious as it seems, but even when it is, you then want to do something about it, and you can use Equilibrium in order to measure response to treatment.
So I would say I'm trying to prevent falls in everyone, right? Because even with gait analysis and others, at a certain age, people fall and they're high-risk falls. So why wouldn't I be doing training on everyone to prevent a fall? So does your tool just do that? Does it allow a nursing home to go in and train everyone, all of their employees, and then all of their patients, here are the things you should be doing to prevent a fall. And if I'm doing that, am I then measuring something on top of that, or am I then attempting to see, after I've trained everyone, who needs more?
Well, so just 30 seconds left. So lots of people would benefit from using Equilibrium in a range from community-based to nursing homes to assisted living to hospitals, home health, etc. So there's a whole range of use cases. Ideally, in a perfect world, everyone would be doing, who was at risk, would be doing the right things to help themselves. It's not always known, and sometimes people need a little extra objective data, as it were, to push them along in that direction. And there was one other question, but in there, but yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so perfect timing. Thank you. Another great presentation. Thank you, Josh. All right. So, not everybody needs to use crowd validation quite as much. Some people we've known for years, and we've been waiting for them to do something really cool. So there's a lot of second-time entrepreneurs and people who are used to be head of innovation at Dell and things like that, who come around, and we're just really excited because we know we're excited to see what they're going to say. So a good friend of ours, Mandy Bishop, is one of those people. So she just is coming out to market now, so she's just taking it out under wraps. Her thing is called Aloha Me, and we are really looking forward to this presentation. So come on out here, Mandy, and big round of applause for Mandy Bishop. So that's what you get when you actually already have celebrity status in our healthcare geek circles. But now you got to prove it to us. So, okay. So unlike everybody else who can go on MedStartr.com right now and go vote for their apps, you can tweet to Mandy Bishop. I don't think she's in your program because she got me her information. It's really that fresh off the press. So what's your Twitter handle, Mandy B
It is
Pro?
at Mandy B Pro, and spell Mandy with an I. Otherwise, you're going to get an adult film star. That is not me. I'm just saying. Like, that might score extra points in some audiences, but that is
I thought
not
I
me.
was going to get in trouble. We're not going to do any kind of dancing either.
No,
Even
it
though
won't
it's
be
called
happening.
Aloma, and we're not going to make any of those jokes. So anyway, so have fun up here with Mandy Bishop and her Aloha Me app. And your 5 minutes begins now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We have been in super stealth mode. So Aloha Health is the name of my organization. And as Alex said, we're brand new. We just started in July. Just make sure that I've got. And we're solving the healthcare as a one-size-fits-all service problem. So I've heard a lot of people up here pitching about things like medication adherence, things like preventing falls. We really believe that healthcare isn't a one-size-fits-all service industry. And how we live, who we trust, what motivates us, all of those factors influence our health and our care. But we treat patients as metrics, right? A diabetes patient is a diabetes patient. They may have X, Y, and Z comorbidities, but we treat each one of those people who have those same conditions very similarly. We don't really have the opportunity to understand our patients beyond things like their BMI, their HbA1c, and their blood pressure. So in a clinical setting, we're really only capturing about 5% of the health data that matters. At Aloha Health, we really believe that if we knew the other 95% and treated our patients as people, we would have an opportunity to truly transform their health and to help them manage their own care. As we move into this age of value-based care, we hear a lot about social determinants of health, and we hear a lot about self-care and self-managed care. But we're not doing very much as an organization to help our patients manage their care, quite simply because we haven't had the time. We don't have the resources. We don't have the data. We don't have the insights available to help us understand our patients as people so that we can understand the barriers and challenges that they might have to managing their care. So at Aloha, we've developed a proprietary blend of social determinant data sources so that we can understand the patients as people. so that we can determine the clinical relevancy of those social determinant data sets, so that we can surface deviations in care pathways and deviations in engagement opportunities and interventions into the EMR, into a care management platform, so that we can better inform and engage our patients more effectively. The market size for this is tremendous. Value-based care alone has about a $600 billion market size by the year 2025. We're starting by specifically targeting employee wellness, care and disease management, and population health. All of these multi-billion-dollar industries, the opportunity to leverage our insights is tremendous. We're starting up on the top left with the actionable insights. So we're developing algorithms to help identify clinical relevancy of various social determinants. We're starting with a data set of about 100,000 data points. We're working with our clinicians to identify the opportunities for those clinically relevant data points and assigning them to models to predict how those data points would potentially deviate care and engagement opportunities. We'll be moving into the data blending. We'll be taking the clinical data from the providers and the payers that we'll be working with, being able to get down to the N of 1, being able to get down to personalized care with a clinical context in addition to the non-health data. Then we'll provide access to the models that we're building, and then we plan to provide engagement services to actually help engage and intervene. The whole thing's proprietary, right? I mean, that's kind of the point. This is why we've been in super secret stealth mode. So right now, we've got 3 separate areas of technology that are patentable, and we are in the process of doing that now. So we've got social, behavioral, environmental determinants. We've got stochastic models that are predicting the likely response and the likelihood that this information is clinically relevant to this patient at this time. And then we've got the decision support algorithms that would be surfaced in the EMR and the care management tool. There is competition, organization called Conance, Optum Labs, Forecast Health, each of which has a competitive offering in this space, none of which are providing access to their stochastic models, none of which are actually going to be performing the engagement services on behalf of their clients. I firmly believe none of which are quite as mission-driven as feisty as we are. These are the collaborators. We call ourselves collaborators because we work very closely with our clients. So we actually do have functioning clients, even though we've only been here since July. And I'm done. And I'll end on that. We've got money. We need more. I think my time was up, so I'm just waiting.
Yeah, so I'm trying to, is it your revenue model?
Yes.
It's prescription-based?
Subscription-based. So we have 2 different types of revenue models. We have a subscription-based, so we have a software license for the actionable insights and for the insights on demand, because those are actual software that would be integrated into various platforms. And then we have the data blending, which is a service, right? Because the types of clinical data is going to require, that's an actual separate implementation. There's a service process that has to go through from a consulting standpoint. And the influence change, that engagement opportunity, is also a consulting services model. We're starting out of the gate with the subscription model, though.
And so you mentioned a couple of competitors.
Yes.
This is a crowded space. So companies you didn't mention, WellTalk, Provant, IBM Watson's Wellness Initiative. Almost every company doing care management has expanded into the consumer wellness space. How will you acquire employer customers, which in a lot of these cases will be taking it from the existing partners or from the insurers who bring partners as they sell to self-insured employers?
I think that there's a lot of opportunity in this space. I think that the fact that there are a lot of entrees into social determinants and people who are looking to identify non-health data sources and the relevance of health, for those non-health data sources is important. I don't believe that any of them, with the exception IBM and Optum are moving in this direction, but I don't believe that any of them have gotten down to the individual level yet, and that they are actually working on personalizing the engagement opportunities, the intervention, and looking at the clinical pathway deviations. So the opportunity that we have, because we are small, nimble, we're able to work very closely with those clients in a collaborative environment to align to the use cases that they need so that we can have individual, like we're working on cancer survivorship in New England, for example. So looking at, at the individual level, what are the quality of life factors that influence cancer survivorship and longevity in the long term? From a differentiator standpoint, that's, that closeness allows us to get to that level of personalization that the others are not interested in at this point because it's a the dollar play is still very high level population health and care management. So we're looking about 5 years out before that individual level is at the same dollar amount that the others are achieving now.
And what actionable data do you tend to, let's assume I'm in a plan and the plan has allowed you to, or hired you to monitor all my data and integrate it. I mean, what are the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve for your patients?
Well, first, I actually, from an actionable data standpoint, the data that we have now, I don't need any data from a client. So we have a product that's available now that can provide insights immediately, which is nice, right? So we were able to have something to offer right off the bat. But say I go in to see my doctor, my twin sister goes in to see her doctor, we live in the same town, we have the same types of health conditions. I have a very different lifestyle, I'm incredibly active, she's not. There's a whole lot of other mental health considerations on both sides that my doctor wouldn't be aware of without this type of information. Understanding how I live, understanding the types of activities that I partake in, understanding at the neighborhood and the block level exactly what air quality exists, what are all the environmental data sets that would have an impact on my health. Being able to surface kind of the top 10 factors that influence and are incredibly important to how you would manage my care versus my sister's care, we believe is what's going to make the difference.
How are you collecting that data, the social data of how people live?
We have three, right, we've started the baseline with 3 data sets, 2 of which are purchased data sets and 1 of which is open data. So it's the blending that's proprietary to us. And then we have a roadmap to blend 20 additional data sources in at varying levels of granularity depending upon the community and the availability of the information at that community.
What kind of data?
All kinds. So I can tell you, I can tell you where you shop, I can tell you what radio stations you listen to, I can tell you whether or not you feel that you are depressed, even if you haven't reported it to your doctor. I can tell you whether or not you have, whether you've taken a walk today and whether you reported to your doctor that you took a walk today. I can tell you how long it's been since you saw your primary care physician. That, we have a very broad set of information that we're pulling data from.
And I assume you need to get the patient's permission to even pull that data together.
Not this data set, no. When we get into more advanced data sets, because this data set is again, it's the blending that's proprietary to be able to get it down to that level.
As soon as you connect it to their health data.
As soon as we connect it to their health data, yes. As soon as we connect it to their health data, but we're not doing that initially straight out of the gates. But when we get to the data blending phase, yes, we would be functioning as a BAA with their provider or with their payer.
And do all of the patients who will use your product, by definition, will they need to have a smartphone or another wearable?
No, it's not a consumer-facing product as of yet. That's not our target market. It'll be integrated into workflows for existing care management platforms and EHRs. Thanks, guys.
So that ends the early morning session. I want to give a big hand of applause for all of the speakers. That was great. We now have about 10 minutes for a coffee break. We're about half an hour behind schedule. So judges, please, you're not allowed to leave until you finish all your work and turn it into the teacher. I guess that's me. So I'm a learner here. Anyways, thanks everybody, and talk amongst yourselves. Enjoy.